Thank you so much. I've not ever been nervous coming on the ACA meetings and everything, but to be asked to speak, first of all, I'm not a speaker. I'm just a fellow traveler. So, but I am willing to share my experience strengthening hope in hopes that someone here we can identify with or you know I know my first ACA meeting was like just the beginning of a whole new world. I've been in recovery for quite a while. Um, I'll start with being a kid first before I go into that. I was born and raised in Midland, Texas, to to a redneck dad and a car hop mom. They were hard workers, I do have to say. They were hard drinkers as well. Um, the I think I can go back as 3-year-old. I We lived in a small little place, but I was told that we lived with my grandmother when I was first born, and through therapy and stuff, I really believe that we did live because considering the abuse that was raised with me, a therapist told me that someone had to love me my first 18 months of my life for me not to be like my parents, I thought, until I got into ACA. It was just your typical home. My dad was for a while a taxi driver, and he used to take me driving with him sometimes. That's about all I remember that. My mom basically always worked at a restaurant, either as a car hop or behind the counter. She didn't have an education that she felt that could push her any further than to be that, I guess, because she didn't. Finished high school. She dropped out at 11th grade. Um, my dad left his home at 9 years old. He couldn't stand his stepdad, so he went and worked on ranches and breaking horses and stuff like that. So, yeah, I was raised by a redneck cowboy, too. Um, they moved into the city when I was born. Out of Del Real, they moved into Midland, and that's where my grandmother lived. My grandmother was a very religious woman, very much of a Christian, and I really think she insisted that us kids were put into the church. I, I only know 2 times my mother's been in a church with me. They would just drop us off, and probably that was their relief time to get away from 3 kids. I have an older brother who's passed, and a younger brother, and so of course I'm the middle child. So anything my oldest brother messed up, I didn't get to do. And then my younger brother was the sweetheart of the family, so he got to do everything he wanted to do. And so as I learned through AA that alcoholism is a progressive disease. Now, my parents never admitted that they were alcoholics, but they sure knew how to drink. And they sure did know how to fight too. Us kids would become, the parents would go out drinking and they're all dressed up and they'd come back and my dad would have been in a fight with somebody, from the place. And then of course that would just spur off the fights at the home. And there was not ever a quiet time in our home if they were home. I was raised in a very dirty home. My dad had no respect for had no respect. He would dump his ashes on the floor in the bathroom, leave papers everywhere. It just, uh, dishes were always a mess. And so we were left a lot as kids. Once my brother became 12 and all that, there was some more babysitters. So a lot of stuff started happening. My oldest brother became my perpetrator for many years because I was too afraid. He was an authority figure, really. I allowed people to be authority figures very early in my life. I had an uncle that came in when I was 6 years old. We had just, my parents had just purchased a home and everything, and he came to live with us, and he became one of my perpetrators. And when the word came out, when I was probably about 11, 12 and years old and everything, my mother blamed me for all of it. She said if I hadn't been so nice, they wouldn't have done those things to me. And that really pulled me for a spin for a lot before until I got into recovery and therapy. Um, we would get beatings really bad to the point that it would be very embarrassing to make it to school, because you would start wearing long clothing because you didn't want people to see the welts on your body. And yeah, I do not like belts at all. They were very painful. Um, when I became we had moved here to California when I was just turned 14, and I was so excited about coming to California. Um, I needed to get away. I was glad that we got away from Texas because I really don't know how my reputation would have been because I was that girl. Just as long as I could get you to like me, you could do anything you wanted to with me. So when I got here, it gave me a new beginning, a new opportunity. And so my opportunity began looking for drugs and alcohol and partying. That was my new thing. I remember driving here, coming to California. Oh my God, a Texas kid coming to here. And all I could think of is all the parties you could go to. And I would watch Hell's Angels on Wheels and get excited. And I'm aging myself. There was this show called 77 Sunset Strip. Man, I wanted to be a part of that scene. And of course, when you go looking, it doesn't take you long. And so many years of alcohol and drug addiction, starting at the age of 14. I remember found my first husband when I was 15. And what attracted me is that he was a lowrider. He hung around bikers and he used drugs and drank the way I wanted to do and began. And so our relationship began. And by the time I was almost 18 years old, we got married. I wasn't pregnant. I just wanted to be married before I got out of high school. So I insisted that we got married 3 weeks before I got out of high school. And I didn't get out of a regular high school. By the time I was in 10th grade and everything, well, ninth grade, I got in a lot of trouble. And in the ninth grade is when my parents really beat the hell out of me. They It took me many years of therapy to get past that. It was a really brutal. My mother was very upset because she went looking for me and she was drunk, and she came back home and she was pissed because she had gotten her ass kicked from my boyfriend's older sister. And so she proceeded to go after me, and her and my dad succeeded, to the point that my nose was on my cheek and I had to put it back. And it was horrific to even thought that your parents could do something like that to you. And so when I went to school and everything, the principal, I got called in because, of course, by the time I did go back to school and everything, because I had to get away from my mom, she was on such a bender. She was out to finish the job, and and we lived in a one-bedroom, cockroach infested, and there was five of us, and I lived in a closet, one of the little bigger closets. It was a dump. And I had to get back to school, get away. And so they reported me to the police, to the juvenile officers, and they went and talked to my parents. And nothing was done. They just told my parents just to, if they wanted to discipline me, to make sure they stayed on the butt and not all over the body. So back in those days, it's nothing like it is today because my parents would have been arrested for what they'd done to me, if it was like today's laws. But anyway, that probably helped me wanting to escape, but I'm a very curious person and wanted to totally get out of myself. So we got married, and by the first year of my marriage and everything, it was horrible. But I stayed for 17 years after, because I was used to the abuse. I was used to the verbal abuse. I was determined to do death to us part. That was something that you were taught raising up in Texas. I'm sure it's changed since then, but when I was growing up there, it was you were really not asked what you were going to do. They just wanted to know how many kids you wanted to have and what kind of marriage you want. So I was conditioned really just to be a mom and a wife, and that's all I really wanted to accomplish in my life was to be a mom and a wife. And so if I lose track, one is because I'm getting older, and there's just so much, at 71 years old, I'm old. And so I have many life experiences, but I don't want to, bring all 71 years into this. We will fast forward. But anyway, we got married, and 2 years later, we had our first child, and he was the love of my life. And I never proud of this. And I realized it once in an office when I was working that that's not something you share in an office because I did drink and smoke dope, marijuana, and cigarettes with my first. And I'm not proud of it. But I didn't know anything different. I did quit drinking because I fell once and I was really afraid I was going to hurt the baby. So I quit drinking, but didn't stop smoking marijuana. So that child was born, and he was everything to me. And I wanted to raise my kids so different from any way I was raised. So I chose, of course, trying. I breastfed, and I joined a league for to learn how to be a mom, a good mom, because I didn't want to blow it with these kids. And so 3 years later, I had my daughter and did natural childbirth because I didn't want to put drugs into her body. But I quit smoking at 7 months pregnant and was so proud of myself that I had quit smoking, but it increased my marijuana intake. I think back at that and go, what were you thinking? But that's what I was thinking. And so she was born, and life was okay, but our drinking and addiction got stronger. Me and my first husband, and I ended up having to go back to work when my son was 7. Um, we weren't making it, and so when I started back to work, I felt that I had lost my family, because I never wanted to work. I wanted just to raise my kids and be a wife. So it doesn't take you long to find those people at work, that you can party with, And so we would go out and drink and do our fun. If a salesman came into the office and wanted to take us all drinking afterwards, hell yeah! I was just going to have a few, but I'd be home about midnight. So, but you couldn't have told me I had a drinking problem because my drinking wasn't like my parents. I had fun drinking and I didn't, knock the hell out of my husband and get in these horrible fights and at that time. But as our drinking and using increased, I added cocaine to it because I didn't want to be that fall down drunk like my mom. I loved drinking, but I didn't want to be like my mom. So I was introduced to cocaine, and wow, I could drink, and I was fine. Even my kid told me I was fine. So it's like, okay, I got this. I'm not like my mom. Crazy, crazy. But so I have to really give thanks to my first husband, because for him, he hit his bottom, allowed me to hit a bottom. I hit my bottom sitting in AA supporting my husband, because I thought, maybe while he's in a recovery place, just maybe this is what I've been searching. I was going to churches and everything to find out what the hell is wrong with us, because I wanted this family to be okay. And never thinking, we would sit and watch these religion shows on Sundays and sit there and be drinking wine and smoking a joint. How do you get God that way? So when he went into a recovery place, and they were suggested that I get rid of everything in the house. So I, poured out all the drugs, got rid of, flushed the drugs we had in the house and poured out the alcohol, buried the gun because my husband tried to commit suicide. And so the house was safe for him. But then when I got back home after he got all settled, it's like I had nothing to drink or use. So I had that moment of clarity. And that's when I hit the bottom, because all of a sudden the shakes and the nightmares and everything occurred. Fast forward, um, I knew, through AA, we ended up going to AA, and um, I never could say that in AA, that when reading the big book that I could find their story, or I would sit and listen to people share, and it never quite heard my story. I would hear bits and pieces of my story, to where I identified, or I probably wouldn't have stayed. So, I found my people. When they said you could say fucking God in the same sentence, I was there. I was there. You know. So, but I still, there's just always had been that something that I was missing. Then when my son ended up being in trouble a lot, by the time he was 17 years old, he was in a fire camp. So see, I didn't have those great kids. What did it say? I wrote some things down, not good at notes, but this one I didn't want to miss. It says dysfunctional followed us into our lives away from our dysfunctional homes. The thought never dawned on us that we had carried the disease with us in the form of persistent fear and distorted thinking. This is the peril alcoholic as we know it. So we no, that was before that. We wrongly believed we solved the problem from our birth family by keeping our home in order. We may have been eliminating alcohol or other dysfunctionals from our home. Our children, who often act out in addictions or aggression, gave us a clue to our failing. We unintentionally passed on our family insanity or distorted thinking. When I read that in this book, when I began here, I was pissed. It was like, no, is that's what happened, because, my kid ended up, I did everything I thought I could do right so that my kid wouldn't end up in prison. But my kid at 17 ended up in a juvenile camp, and that wasn't his first stint. I mean, my kid's a bank robber. When the FBI came to my, called me on my home, telling me this, it was like, what? You know, and I can say that without crying. I cried for years. I mean, to because I couldn't believe that really happened to me. Not a and for him too. And so I had sent him to live with his dad because he was so uncontrollable. He was very aggressive. And so I thought, well, me and his dad broke up when I was 2 years sober. And he hadn't quite got sobered yet. He had difficulties getting sober. He got sober up after we split up. But so yeah, that was one of my biggest shocks, you know. And then my daughter, me and her were really close and all that. And then when she met her husband and all that, the distance started, you know. And you know, she's married to an awesome man. So I tried to figure this out for years, and she just turned 47. So in the beginning, so what got me here? I so okay, I'm 38 years sober, and I'm almost in October. I'll have 3 years in ACA. I would like to say I'm done doing all the steps in ACA, and I couldn't do that too. I've stopped at step 4, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I remember when I had my knee replaced when I was still working in 2019, and I was out in my backyard and I was listening to another group, but it was an ACA meeting. And all of a sudden, I'm just crying my eyes out during that share. It just like it hit my soul what they talked about. But I was so busy getting back to work, you know, going to AA and stuff like that, and working was about all I could handle. And but I was going to start a program for rejected parents. I was going to start meetings for that because I know the pain of that really well. And I really felt that needed. And I still sometimes think about still starting one because there's just so many of us out there, and I keep meeting them. And someone recommended me to go to Al-Anon, even though after I've already heard that. And so I started going to Al-Anon, and I started going to double winners meetings. And when I went back to work, even started the double winner meetings. It's still active, 5 years, still active, set it online. And so I still got it going. And still wasn't there. I did all the steps to now and on, but there still wasn't something there. But I still remembered crying in the backyard through that ACA meeting. And so I lost my job due to the pandemic after, you know, almost 14 years at that job. I couldn't believe I lost. But then it was okay. So 9 months later, I tried to go back to work at a chiropractor's office, and I kind of knew not to. I shouldn't have gone there because I went to this office and I really didn't care for this one gal. She kind of rubbed me the wrong way. She was just a little controlling, and I controlling people were my authority figures for so long. And if you were my boss, or if you were older or whatever, if you were in charge, you were in charge of me too. You know, that's just the way it has always been, not today, but then. And so I went to that job, and me and her kind of got along. But as the months went by, I lasted there 9 months, and I knew I was in trouble when one day we were really busy, and I was really upset how the doctor and her were acting. And when it all calmed down and everything, she had been trying, she would put me down when I would make a mistake, to like I was a piece of shit. And I had it. I had worked with a boss that was like that, and I put up with it because I needed his money. I needed the money because they paid good, so I put up with the behavior. But I wasn't, I was done putting up with people's behaviors, and I lost it. We had patients in the office, and I yelled at her, "Quit talking to me like that," and I very loud. I lost it. I knew I was in trouble, so I quit the job. And so an A suggested maybe I check out ACA, and so I started going to ACA meetings. And my Al-Anon sponsor moved back to Ireland and all that. And I was thinking, oh, I found Limerick. And I thought, oh, cool, we could get together here in a meeting together. And she tried. And It just wasn't her thing. She just stayed in AA, and when she got back there, and I always hope I get to go visit her there. But so I stayed with you guys because one, when I started AA, we weren't fucking timed. I hate being timed. You know, I've not talked this long in a long time, so it really feels weird. But to be able to finish the sentence, and mainly for people that what would really bother me is when we started this timing business is someone would really be in the midst of their share, and it'd be time, your time is up. And I would be like, wait a minute, what are you doing? No, but the majority of the meeting wins. And I still keep finding to get rid of the timing. I still go to AA meetings, and I love it when the timer doesn't show up because no one else times. And so this is how I love Limerick. You know, I started coming every day. In the beginning, I was in so much pain. I would just lay in bed and listen because I was in the process of getting ready for a back surgery, and I would cry and cry and cry. And again, I love the freedom that Limerick gives you in being able to express your true feelings and to be you, with respect to others as well, but so I became a host here and I loved it. And I miss it. I just recently had a hip replacement, which was the greatest thing in the world. If any of you are out there that needs a hip replacement, tell your doctor you want it now because you don't deserve to be in pain like that. But from September of last year to still now, because I've not been relieved to drive. So I'm biting at the bullet to get back into my society and get out on my own without being escorted around. You know, um, I've really got to know Katy. Thank God I love my home. Thank God it's a safe home. And I'll tell you why I ended up stopping my steps. Someone here had shared about a meeting called RCA, Recovering Adults Anonymous. And I still want that good family. And it's just me and my husband and our dog and 3 cats. But I want to live in peace and harmony and intimacy as well. And we're both ACA. He doesn't come. He's not. He wasn't in any kind of recovery until ACA. And so I brought it to him. We're coming up on our year, and he said yes. Oh my God, you guys, that scared the hell out of me because he said yes. I've been married to this guy for a long time, but wait, he said yes. Now what do I do? And it's turned out really good. We're like almost like starting all over again, to getting to know each other truly, because we're both retired, so we're around each other a lot. There's no going to work in the morning and coming home at night like we're used to. And so I'm in a whole new adjustment, of my life. And so here again, recovery is the key. You know, um, I wouldn't want to trade being in a 12-step program. The whole world needs a 12-step program. And if you're new here, and I really want to share what the big book says about us that are addicted in other programs and all that. And I'm probably, where am I at? It says for adult children with addiction issues, we recommend that you attend 12-step meetings to address these issues as well. While ACA is often the only program for many adult children, ACA is not a replacement for addicts working a program in Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, or Cocaine Anonymous. It really is important to stay with your base. We don't have to agree with all that AA, and I hear that here in AC a lot, that people put AA down. AA gave me my foundation for me to be able to explore, to improve me better. I'm a broken child and I'm still working on it. I mean, I cannot believe at 71 years old, I'm still living childhood issues. It stays with you, but you don't have to keep it with you. There's this program. And there's so much to encounter. I mean, uh, I'm not a real big, fast worker unless I've got a sponsor running the show. And I've not chosen a sponsor here. I kind of pulled away from being with groups, but I'd like to find a way to get back into a real strong group of women, to continue doing my steps. But I'm doing okay with the way I am. Yeah, I'm so grateful for each and every one of you in this square. So grateful for each and every person I have met when I was hosting, and who knows, I might come back because I really like it. It's a breeze for me. But anyway, I appreciate each and every one of you, and I don't want to take the whole meeting up, so thank you.
Thank you so